Go on then, Craig, get bored.
I do, you can come.
Changing Futures, scene Pottsy, take 2.
Hi, I'm Pottsy. My name's Stuart Potts, but everybody calls me Pottsy. I'm here to tell you some of the stuff that's happened in my past and how I've got to where I am now and what's happened previously to me. I started off in my young years. I had quite a good upbringing with my mum and dad and stuff. I think when my nana passed away, I think in '89 or something like that, I started rebelling and stuff at school. Got suspended and expelled, and then started getting involved in bits of crime and stuff, petty crime mainly. A lot of driving offences over the years. A few other different bits and bobs, assaults and stuff like that. And then, what do you call it? I started a job at age 13 at the shoe repairers. Started doing work for a man called Derek as a shoe repairer, locksmith and key cutter. I was doing alterations and stuff like that. I've done a number of jobs over the years with different agencies and stuff. Different places with the different agencies, doing, what do you call it, order picking, packing, loading and unloading, stuff like that, just general labouring work and stuff. I've done construction work, demolition work, I've done building, bricklaying courses, plastering, painting and decorating, all sorts of different stuff over the years. And I've done other stuff with adult social care, children's social care and stuff, safeguarding vulnerable adults, safeguarding vulnerable children. I've also done another stuff at Trafford College, what I've got some certificates for, preparing to work in adult social care. Like I say, I've been in and out of prison over the years as well, for different things and stuff. And then I had a bit of stability in life. I ended up getting married. I was with the girl for 16 years or something like that. I had a bit of stability over them many years. I'd still gone to prison a couple of times through different driving offences, even whilst I was married. And then in 2016, my daughter had come back home and it looked like she'd had some sort of drugs or something. I knew that was I've used drugs in the past myself. So the missus started having a bit of a go at her. She confiscated the phone off her, and then she ran off up the road, my daughter. So I went back and bear-hugged her, brought her back to the house, told her that she shouldn't talk to her mum like a knobhead basically, and sent her to bed. Next minute the police had come round, started saying, said, "Hi Mr Potts, we've had a phone call saying that you've assaulted your daughter on the street." So I said, "I haven't assaulted her." I said, "I've just bear-hugged her and dragged her back to the house." They said, "Oh, dragged her back in, what sort of manner did you drag her back?" So I said, "How do you normally get a 13-year-old teenager back in the house, what's kicking and screaming and doesn't want to listen to anything you're saying?" So I just put her back in the house and told her not to speak to her mum like a knobhead. They said, "Well, that in itself's assault." Next minute, they arrested my wife at the time as well, because she may or may not have pushed her when my daughter was hitting her at the time. So we both got arrested, both was in the police cell. Then the social services then got involved, and the ball started rolling. Then my kids started getting took off me, and it was like hell on earth. That was really. They ended up with her sister at the time. Then they started delving into my past, saying, "Oh, he's got a criminal record. He's you know what I mean, he's been to jail and stuff." And then one of my so-called friends. Well, he was my friend. It wasn't his fault. He was a drug user. You know, I could have said no, but at the time, my life was falling apart. He'd offered me some crack, which was one of the worst mistakes I ever made in my life, taking that. He said, "Do you want a bit of this?" I thought, well, you know, my life can't get any worse. It's already falling apart. I'm losing the house, the wife, the kids, the car, the business. Everything was going. But my head was really going at the time. So I had this crack. And then I thought, well, you know, it's only £10 a bit for a bit of this crack. It's cheaper than coke. You know what I mean? I didn't realise that I wanted £10 every 20 seconds though, because it's a really greedy drug. By the time I knew it, all the stuff around me had sold. It was all in cash generators, everything. You know, all I wanted was that bit of crack, and that was my life then for well, probably about 8 months. Luckily, I got off it myself. I'd gone to like a chief to try and get some sort of help. They said there was nothing they could do because it's all in your head. It's psychological, apparently, coke. Well, I said it's not, mate, really. You know. So I just sat over that desk, getting. I don't know how much you're getting a year for this job to tell me there's nothing you can do about what what I'm on. So he said, well, I know how you feel, Mr. Potts. I said, do you really? He said, have you ever had crack cocaine? He said, no, I've never had it. So I said, you haven't a clue then, mate. Because at this point in time, I'm looking at your mobile phone there, which is probably worth, I don't know, about $1,000 or something, your iPhone there. I said, no, I'm thinking I could get 20 quid for that. I said, I'm telling you that, I'm not going to do it. And all he was interested in then was getting his phone away from me. I'm thinking, wow, you know, and I'm telling you this because this isn't something I'd normally do, you know what I mean? I said, this drug's taking over my life. So after that, he said, I need some help anyway. He said, there is something you can do. He said, you can go to Cocaine Anonymous. He said, and try something there. So my mum came with me, along with me to this Cocaine Anonymous to try and see if I could sort myself out with a bit of peer support. I'd gone into this room with all the other people that are ex-drug users. Some of them are still current drug users. I'd got rid of all my numbers for drug dealers and stuff because I didn't want any of this drug anymore because it was absolutely ruining my life. So I'd gone into this room, everybody's talking about different drugs and coke and crack, and all I could think about then was, where can I get some from now then, because it was going through my mind. You know, I wasn't thinking about it till I walked into that room, and then some bloke said, oh, I got some real powerful stuff the other day. It was really amazing stuff. So I thought, well, I've already got a number now, because this guy knows where to get it from. And then by the time I came out there, I had more numbers than I had when I originally walked in, and more numbers than I had in the first place when I first walked through the door. And that didn't really mean anything anyway, because when I walked out the door, there was a crack dealer outside because he knew what sort of people was inside the building, and he was selling crack for the people that was going out the building. So, you know, I thought this isn't working, so I went back to the drug and alcohol place. I said, this ain't working, it's making things 10 times worse. So I did say to him, I said, look, what I want is regular piss tests, please. So you can monitor me and I can monitor myself. So he said, you can't just have piss tests whenever you want, Mr. Potts. He said, it's not cost effective. So I said, I'm only peeing on a piece of paper, you know, it costs pennies, you can get them off eBay, these things. I said, if you want, I'll buy the piece of paper to pee on if you want. And he said, no, we can't do that, it's got to come from the accredited place. So I said, okay, you get the stuff and I'll pay for it from wherever you get it from. And we said no anyway. So in jest, I said to him, I said, all right, then a bit harder drugs. I said, a bit heroin and using needles. I wasn't, but I just said that to him. Then he says, would you like some syringes? Do you want these syringes? Do you want these? Do you want these spoons, these filters and all this? Do you need a script? I said, bloody hell. I said, how much does all that cost? You give me the tools to kill myself, but you won't give me the stuff to help me get off the stuff. I thought, this is absolute bonkers, this stuff. So I ended up getting off it myself. The reason being I tried a bit of heroin with somebody and I thought, well, this is absolutely bonkers, man. I'm going to fall right down the rabbit hole here. Luckily, I didn't like the stuff. I mean, otherwise I'd probably be on the gear now, probably. So, touch wood, I didn't like it. And then, what do you call it? I sat in my toilet. I was still sort of at the house with my wife at the time. Everything was like falling apart. I was told I had to leave the house by social services. So basically, they were splitting us all up as well, and I'd had to go to my mum's. They were saying. But on this occasion, I sat in the toilet and I closed the door. Normally, my daughter would normally sit there while I'm having a crap, basically. You know, we've got no privacy when you've got kids. She'd sit there drawing pictures of rainbows and stuff, you know, and she banged on the door and she said, Dad, I made a picture for you. And she tried opening the door. She put pictures through the door to show me the pictures she'd drawn. And I said, no, go away, and close the door. And I thought, fucking hell, what am I doing here? So I ended up throwing the crack down the toilet, and I give it up. But by then it was a bit too late because the social services then was saying, you know, he's hit drugs. And one of the reasons I had to hit the drugs in the first place is because they fucked me fucking head up. And so that played with my mental health, obviously, because I'd stopped the drugs around about, I think it was October. By November, my head was completely mashed. I was splitting up from the wife. I had a flat. She was moving into a new house, and I was trying to box everything in my head to move things for her, move my stuff into my house and her stuff into hers. My daughter had rang me up whilst I was moving all the stuff. She was only young at the time, and she said, "Daddy, the apple tree, what we did in here, and then in the fridge, we procreated it from a proper apple, and it grew to about, she'd say about this big in the back garden." She said, "We're taking that to the new home because we'll all be back together soon, won't we?" I said, "Yeah, we will do, don't worry about that." So I started digging it up in the back garden for our old house. And then I got to her, my wife's new house, started digging a hole. My head was completely going. I was dancing around the garden, completely naked, in the rain. I don't know what was going through my head. I was singing all mad songs. And then she said, you gone mad, you're on drugs." The wife come home and opened the patio doors. She said, you're still on the drugs, aren't you? I wasn't. My head was just going completely off the Richter scale at the time. And I was just wanting to plant this tree. I don't know what the meaning of it was in my head at the time. And the police came round and said, "Can you step away from the apple tree, Mr. Potts?" And I thought, is it me going balmy or is it them? So I realised probably why they asked me to step away from it, but I'd had a spade in my hand, so they probably might have thought, because of the way I was, that I could have been dangerous, but I wasn't. I was just planting an apple tree. And then, instead of helping me, the police then smashed me to the ground, battered me several times in the back garden. They dragged me through the house, screaming and kicking. It was really hurting me. And they put the handcuffs on me so tight. They was digging into me wrists. I got in the back of the van. They took me to Swindon Police Station, and they absolutely annihilated me in there. They freaking really fucking annihilated me in so many ways you'll never know. And so I said to them, I'm going to get you all done, because what you've done is completely, you're animals. So one of the officers come back to the door. He says, "No, you won't, Mr. Potts." He said, "Because we have the power to section you under the 136 Act, I think it's called." And he said, "And we'll drag you to the loony bin." So I said, "Okay, nice one." And this, you know, "You're evil bunch of bastards," I said. He said, and then they did take me back they took me to Meadowbrook. He said, "By the time you get out of there," he said, "nobody's going to believe an ex-criminal, an ex-druggie, or an ex-loony bin, or a mental patient." And he said, "By the time you get out of this place," he said, "nobody will believe a word you say. Your word will mean shit." And that's exactly what they said. They dragged me to Meadowbrook, completely stripped naked I was at the time, battered from head to toe and covered in bruises and cuts. And there's evidence to this as well, because when I did get out of Meadowbrook, I said I want every piece of information of when I landed in this place. And it says Mr. Potts came in on the paperwork. It says Mr. Potts came in, and he was covered with from head to toe in bruises. He said he could, which couldn't possibly have been done by himself. We did ask for him to do a mapper on him, which is a full body shot of all your pictures of the bruises. I think that's what I'm aware of. I think that's what it means. Apparently I'd said no, but I was in no fit state to say no at the time. My head was completely cabbaged. So I was in there and then for 3 months. It was a hellhole in there. I'd had a nervous breakdown, that's what it was. That's how I can put it down to, because the amount of pressure what was going on in my life then was really terrible. My head had just caved in. So, like I say, I wanted to get out of this place anyway. This Meadowbrook, it was horrible in there as well. It's like one who flew over the cuckoo's nest. It really is. No, there's no conformity there. Nobody knows what they're doing. Half the staff are what do you call it? The bank staff they call it. I think that's agency. So nobody has a clue what's going on. I mean, I watched some guy get out there. I mean, he could have been a mad axe murderer. He knocked on the door of the reception and said, "Look, I've got leave." They said, "Is it escorted or unescorted?" So he said, "It's unescorted." So I knew it was sectioned up to the hill. So they said, "Okay, sign here and tell us what clothes you've got on." And I said, "We'll let you out. What time do you normally come back?" So I don't know what he said. He probably said about 8 o'clock or something. And this bloke left the building and walked out. I mean, he wasn't fit to walk out. This bloke wasn't. So I thought, well, I'm okay. I thought I wanted to go and see somebody who wasn't well at an old people's home. He'd been put in an old people's home. Another bloke that we used to call Grandad as well. So I'd gone to the reception and said, "Look," I said, "when's my leave? I'm supposed to have it today." She said, "Well, what is it, unescorted or escorted?" So I said, "Unescorted." She said, "What time do you normally come back?" So I said, "About 10 o'clock or something." My mum picks me up and drops me back off, and they let me out the building. And then I come back at 10 o'clock anyway, but I wasn't really allowed to be out because it was ringing up my mum. The rest of the staff started ringing up my mum saying, where is he? Is he with you? And she said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, he's not really supposed to have gone out. I don't know how he's got out." Well, they obviously did. It was one of their members of staff that let me out of the building. So within this place, I ended up getting what do you call it? I used to have a walk round in the mental institution. You did I think it's called a walk round. You'd have like 11 people sat in this room. 11 or 12 people sat in a room, and they'd all be discussing whether you should be staying there or not, or how the treatment's going and the rest of it. You have a doctor who's dealing with you, and one of the members of staff off the wing and stuff like that. And then they said, "You look like things are going to plan, Pottsy." Well, Stuart said, "We're going to keep you on the same sort of medication that you're already on." I think it was quetiapine or olanzapine, which is an antipsychotic drug. So I said, "Well, I don't really want to be on this." I said, "It's making my head worse than it actually ever has been." I said, "And I've read some of the side effects on it, and some of these drugs can cause suicidal thoughts. They can cause, psychosis and stuff like that, and depression. And I thought, these are the things I'm trying to get away from, And the reason I'm in here is because I've stopped drugs. I don't want to be filled with drugs. Your drugs, the legal side of drugs, or illegal drugs. I don't want any of this stuff in my system." They said, "Well, you do have an appeal tomorrow. You've got tribunal tomorrow because you've employed a solicitor to try and get you out of here, haven't you?" I said, "And, if you don't play ball, basically, and you don't have the tablets," I said, we can write you a bad report." So I said, "Well, what you're doing really to me is you're forcing me to have these tablets." I said, "I don't really want them." So I said, "Well, we can write a bad report, and you don't want that. You'll never get out then, will you?" So I said, "Right, okay." But we're not going to be up in the tablets. He said, "You're on 200 mil or something I was on at the time, so we'll just keep it like that to keep you stable." So I thought, well, at least they're not messing about with the tablets like they normally do, put up and down, and then they'll try and say you've got bipolar and stuff like that. Then then so I'd gone back to my cell. I call it a cell because you're locked up in there, aren't you? Really, it's a bit nicer room than a prison cell, but it's still a cell. So I didn't have my tablets, and then somebody knocked on my door around 12 o'clock at night and said, "Pottsy, you've not had your medication." So I said, "I don't want it." He said, "Well, you've got to have it. You heard what they said at the meeting today. If you don't have it, then you're going to, what do you call it, you're going to get a bad report." So I said, "Okay then." So I went to the serving hatch where they give you the tablets. I looked at the tablets, and they'd upped it then by it was 500 mil then. So they'd upped it 300 mil. So I thought this could knock a donkey out, you know what I mean? I said, "They're doing this on purpose or something?" I said, "But tomorrow I'm not going to be fit for this tribunal." So I said, "It makes no difference whether they write a bad report or not." I said, "Because I'm going to have me rocking box on these." So I said, "Well, if you don't have it, you're going to probably lose your tribunal tomorrow." So I had it anyway. Luckily the next day, I felt okay. So it didn't really affect me. I don't know what it was. I must have had a good night's sleep or something. I don't know, but I was okay by my tribunal. Then, luckily this time I had there was a guy in front of me. I think he was from the Home Office, and I had a woman doing the minutes and a doctor what I'd seen the day before, and he seemed to be on my side. This doctor, and luckily I had my mum with me for support this time, and I also had the solicitor what was trying to get me out, and this Dr. Nazir, or whatever her name was, what was on this side of me. And, the guy from the Home Office asked the doctor, said, "What are you keeping him in for? What's his diagnosis?" So I said, "Well, we haven't really come up with one yet." So he's like, "What do you mean not come up with one?" So like, I think since she was trying to make one up, like bipolar with personality disorder, and then she'd make a new name, and then she could be, she'd go higher up in the ranks, wouldn't she? Then I think that's only now thinking back of these things. And he said, "Well, you can't really. You must have some sort of idea why he's what he's in here for and why you're keeping him." She went, "Well, he lets on to a lot of people." And she said, "What do you mean he lets on to a lot of people?" She said, "You can't just keep him in here for that." He said, "Elaborate on this, give us a bit more insight into what you mean by that." So he said, "Well, I'll give you an example. He was out yesterday on escorted leave with a member of staff." He said, and then when he's gone out with this member of staff, he's saying hello to loads of different people, which I know a lot of people around Salford and Eccles. I'm very well known, so there's nothing wrong with that, is there? Me saying hello to people, it's not about shying away and going and running away from people. I try to be quite friendly with most people. And one of my friends, I call him Tintin, that's his nickname, and he shouted me over. He went, "All right, Pottsy, come over here." So I went over, shook my hand, and then he gave me an hug. And this is what she was saying to the Home Office bloke. He said, like, he was with this member of staff, and he's gone over to this bloke and he's started shaking his hand, hugging him and all that lot. He said he could be vulnerable. So the guy from the Home Office is looking at her going, "My God, what's wrong with you?" sort of thing. He's not doing anything wrong here. So they ended up letting me out of there with no sort of diagnosis anyway, because I just, all it was is I had a nervous breakdown. Put somebody under that amount of pressure and your head will go. I don't care who you are, and I don't care how high you're up or how low you are, you'll break if you're under so much pressure. So then I ended up getting out of there, and then it was what they call it. I had a flat. The landlord had come up whilst I was in Meadowbrook, and he'd signed the paperwork over to me whilst I was in there, saying I could have the flat. So all the rent sort of got paid because I was on benefits at the time as well. I'd gone back home. I was looking around my flat, and all I kept seeing was the pictures of my children, and it was very upsetting. So I thought my head's going to go again if I keep thinking about it all the time. I've got to crack on and do something. So I ended up going up to Manchester and having a walk around there and doing a bit of outreach work. I've done it in the past as well, previously to that. I'd come across a lad called Stephen Bolton. He was outside Tesco. I asked him a few questions, said, "Why you're homeless?" He said, at 9 weeks previous to him being sat there, Rochdale Council had come out, and because his mum had passed away, so they'd come out to see him and said, "Look, you're not entitled to this 3-bedroomed house, off your pot," basically. He says, "What do I do now?" He said, "I was my mum's carer. I've been living here for most of my life, He said, "Well, yeah, you've got no evidence to prove that, and you're not entitled to it anyway." He said, "What do I do now?" So he said, "Well, go and bed like the rest of everybody else has to." So he said, "You know what the housing situation's like. He'll be on it forever, won't he? So he'll be sat on that sidewalk until he passes away, basically. They don't do anything, the council, as far as I'm aware. Half the time they don't do what they're supposed to do. I know there's a shortage of stuff, but it's absolutely ridiculous the way things are. I asked him if he was on any sort of drugs. He said he was on crack and heroin. So I said, "Well, you could come back to mine, but there'd be none of that in my house. I don't do drugs anymore. I've stopped all that stuff." So he said, "No, I'm okay the way I am at the minute." So he wanted to continue doing what he was doing. So a couple of weeks later, I'd gone onto Market Street again, and I'd seen a young lady there that was trying to help and trying to get off the spice. She wasn't really interested in trying to get off it, but I was trying to encourage her to try and get off it if she could, or I was offering her somewhere to stay as well. She didn't want to anyway. I got a tap on the shoulder off Mr. Stephen Bolton. He tapped me on the shoulder. He said, is that Pottsy? I said, yes. He says, is that help still available? Can I stay at yours? I want to get clean, I want to do my rattle. So I said, okay. Come back to mine. He then come back to mine. He stayed at mine for about 9 or 10 weeks or something like that, and he got clean. He did his rattle. It was a horrible thing to watch, really. It's not a very nice thing to watch somebody rattling. It was very painful for him, and it wasn't very nice at all. I started speaking to one of the neighbours over the road, telling him what I was up to, doing outreach work and stuff, and like giving the tents out and stuff, and food and whatnot. I thought he was interested, but unfortunately he wasn't. He was telling me, my landlord, that I'd had a homeless person there. Then I got a phone call off my landlord saying, "Who's this homeless tramp you've got there? Some smackhead in your house." I said, "Listen, mate."
Put in again.
Okay.
In a little bit more, Claire.
Changing Futures, scene Pottsy, take 3.
I got a tap on the shoulder, and it was Stephen Bolton. He said, "Right, Pottsy, is that offer still open to stay at yours?" He said, "I want to get clean. I want to do my rattle like yours." So I said, "Yeah, it is." I said, "As long as you want to get off it," and I said, it's perfectly fine, come back to mine. So he stayed at mine for about 9 or 10 weeks. Started talking to the bloke over the way, telling him what I was doing, like giving tents out and stuff, and doing a bit of outreach work and around town and stuff in different places. I thought he was quite interested in what I was doing. He seemed eager to get involved. I thought he wanted to get involved, but he wasn't, unfortunately. He was telling my landlord about me taking people in. I got a phone call off my landlord saying, "Who's this homeless tramp you've got living at your house? Some smackhead." So I said, "Listen, there's no need to talk about people like that, you know. He's not even on drugs anymore." I said, "He's come clean whilst he's been in mine, and he's doing quite well." He said, "Well," he said, you're not doing it anymore." He said, "The pair of you can get out of there." So that made us both technically homeless at the time. Luckily, or so I thought, luckily, a bloke, I don't know, was supposed to be a friend, said I could go to his. Now I had a full flat full of stuff. All he had at his was just a bed mattress in the middle of the room. He didn't have anything. So one of my other friends got a van and helped me take all the stuff to his, from mine to his. He didn't charge me or anything. He was a good lad, he was. I took all the stuff, made his house a home, new TVs and stuff, washing machines and everything. Made it into a lovely home. Me and Stephen was both there at the time. Next minute, the chap who was letting me stay there, I got into a bit of an argument with him. I think it was over, he wanted some money off me and I didn't have any money at the time. So he'd rang his brother up, his brother come round, smashed me head over the head about 5 times with a hammer. So that was that. Me and Stephen ended up on the streets again. Unfortunately, Stephen ended up on the streets of Manchester again, and unfortunately he had an overdose in town. He ended up back on the drugs. He probably thought, you know, this is it again, my life's over, which I can understand why he would think like that. After a while, I ended up living on the side of the canal in Eccles. I tried making it into a bit of a home there. I had a tent there at one point, and then I started putting some tarpaulin up. We had a TV, couch, kettle, made it into like a bit of a living quarters on the side of the canal. Next minute, the police officer comes down, says, "What are you doing here, Pottsy?" I said, "Well, living here, why?" He said, "Well, you can't." So I said, "Well, what is your job then, you know?" He said, "My job's to move you on." So I said, "Where do I go?" He said, "I don't care where you go." He said, "Really?" He'd buggered off for a bit, and then he'd come back with a 48-hour dispersal notice for not to camp anywhere within the whole of Salford. So I said, "Now you've just took the whole roof from above my head." I said, "Where do you want me to hide? Do you want me to hide in a bush, under a carpet, you know? What am I supposed to do? Nobody's helping me. I've been to the homeless units all the time, and they just keep turning me away." And in fact, one of the people there was quite nasty and rude to me and my girlfriend at the time. Unspeakably nasty, and she shouldn't really be in that job, if you ask me. This anyway, he said, "I don't care where you go, Pottsy." He said, "Go to Manchester where everybody else goes." So I said, "I don't really want to go to Manchester." I said, even though I'm homeless, I said, my local network is within Eccles and Salford. I said, and people help me even while I'm here. I'm getting like clothes given me and blankets and other accessories, and people bring me food and stuff. Wasn't even on benefits at the time. I was getting nothing. I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have no ID because obviously everything had been lost. My bank account had got lost whilst I was on the street. Somebody tried committing some fraud on my bank account, so all my bank account got frozen, locked down. So I had nothing. I couldn't even open a bank account because I didn't have any sort of any ID or anything. But this couple wanted me to go to town. I said, if I go to town, I said, I'll end up on the spice or something. Life's bad enough as it is. I said, and my head's that way. I'd probably be in that much of a vulnerable situation that I'm in now. I said, I wouldn't give a damn, really. But he wasn't really arsed, this copper, you know. So I ended up moving from the canal, and then from there I ended up in a mansion, an old mansion on Barton Road. What my friend was in there called Jesus John. Now, it was a real pig shithole it was. It was all smashed up and boarded up. There was no power in there. He had his dogs there with him, Johnny. The dogs were more looked after than we were, basically. There was no power in there, like I say, so I went down into the cellar and I found where the power point was. It had been all disconnected and cut. But we managed to get some power on anyway, so at least we had some sort of heating and a bit of warmth and some lighting. Not shortly after that then, the electric board obviously must have found out that we had it on. Fire brigade got called out, so health and safety grounds and stuff like that. We ended up getting kicked out of there. And obviously because it's a residential building as well, we didn't have a leg to stand on. I didn't know any of my rights at the time about squatting. From there we ended up going, I did a bit of research anyway, online and stuff about 144 legal notices, what you could put up, which gives you a bit of protection. You have to get a court order then. So we ended up taking a building over the road, which was an old boathouse sort of thing. It was all by P.L. Holdings, I think, at the time. At the time of this, we got in there. I put the 144 notices on the windows and on the gates and whatnot. And this bully like security guard comes, and he said, "What are you doing in here? You're not allowed in here." I said, "Well, we're squatting. We've got a few lads in here." He said, "I want you out, basically." So I said, "Well, we're not going anywhere. We're homeless, mate." I said, "The 144 is on the gate there, as you can see. Have a read of it." He said, "Oh, you know what you're talking about." He said, "Obviously, you've looked into this, and you know we can't come in there." So have you got in there? So I said, "Well, I've got some like ex-criminals in there. I've got ex-drug users, some drug users, what I'm still currently using. So I've got people with drink issues, people with mental health issues, or some people with some of them with loads of combined issues altogether." I said, "I've been through all that myself as well." So he said, "Oh right." He said, "You know your rights, and you can stay here until we get the court order, but there's no telling what can go on in the middle of the night." So I'm like, "Wow." He said he tried to start offering us some money then as well. He said, "We'll give you £100 each or something." So I said £100 each, mate. He said, "I've already told you, like, we've got drug addicts in here and stuff, and we've got alcoholics and stuff." I said, "You could give them £100 and said in the next minute they could jack some up their arm or drink too much, and then they end up dead on the street." I said, "Even if you gave me the money and I was going to put it to good use, which I would have done, if you had have done, if we had have accepted that." I said, "Well, they put us up in a hotel for a couple of nights, if that, you know what I mean?" I said, "And we're back to square one." I said, "And in regards with any," he said, "there's no telling what can go on in the middle of the night, basically." So I said, it's sort of like a threat, I thought. I seen it as a threat. I said, "Listen, mate," I said, "I just told you I've got ex-drug users, current drug users, people with mental health issues, people with all these combined issues, people that have been in prison, you don't even know what they've been in prison for. I mean, I don't know half the stuff what people have done in their lives. I've never walked in their shoes." I said, "But if you come in this building in the middle of the night, whilst they're sleeping," I said, "there's no telling what's going to happen to you either, is there really? You could end up in the canal, mate." I said, "So there's no point throwing idle threats like that about." It could be dangerous for either of us or anybody within the building or yourself. Anyway, they got us out there with the court order eventually, because P.L. Holdings have got quite a lot of money. They've got the fingers in all sorts of pies, and they got us out very, very quick. From there we went off to a place called the Near Malaysia. It used to be the Devonshire Arms pub in Eccles. And we got in there through the fire exit at the back. We had the commercial bit at the front, and we made the residential bit at the back. into a home. We made it really nice. The bloke what I was speaking to at the old mill at the side of the canal was giving us stuff like furniture and that, because he owned a furniture shop, and he was like giving us stuff to help us. So we made it into a really nice home. All the Asians from the mosque over the road had come over because it was owned by some relation of theirs, and they wanted us out of there. They'd come in through the front. I'd let them in unwillingly, thinking they was going to help us because he was bringing us food and stuff as well, even though they wanted us out basically. But then they started boxing us into the residential area of it, so we didn't really have a leg to stand on then, because it's residential, and you basically could get done then for sort of burglary sort of thing, because it wasn't actually within the commercial building sort of side of things. So from there, I'd gone onto a park. I think one of the days when we was near enough about to leave on Eccles Wreck, I was having a bit of a barbecue on there, still home. There's a few of my friends there, and a lady walked past with a dog, and I handpicked some flowers around the park, and I looked at this girl. I thought, well, I'm going to try my luck with this girl. So even though I was homeless, I didn't think I'd had a cat in hell's chance really. So I've gone over, give her these flowers, ended up getting talking to her, ended up with her. Still homeless at the time. So she came to the named leisure while we were in there. She realised that we was all getting kicked out, so we all ended up going back to her house to stay there for a bit. She'd been issued a Section 21 eviction notice as well, because the landlord wanted to. He said he was selling the property, but it wasn't. He wanted it back because he wanted to put the rent up significantly high, which he did do when we'd go out with there. Because around that area, the rent's normally like 600-700 quid for the same sort of property, and we was only getting charged about 500 quid for the month. So he couldn't have put that rent up that much whilst we was in the property, so that's why he was getting her out. And then what do you call it? We ended up homeless anyway. All the rest of my friends, and I was sick of looking at all my friends being homeless. We had a bloke called Grandad, and I was sick of seeing him all the time. His tents were getting burnt out. He was getting robbed, mugged and stuff, sleeping in bush shelters down entries in absolute piss squalor, which was really horrible to see. It wasn't very nice. And I seen the doctor's surgery in Eccles. Now this building's been empty for 15 years as far as I'm aware, because it used to be my doctor's. It used to be Dr. Ganvers many years ago. Well, they all passed away, and the building was left empty really. But I'd noticed that the lights had always been on, and the flue, there was steam coming out the flue. So I'm thinking, well, somebody's paying for this place just to stand empty. I'm not having it. So I ended up getting in through the back of that fire door. I got in there, and I thought, well, I got in there with a few of us. We looked around and thought, this is quite a big building, we could do something with this. So me and a few friends went up to Salford and through Manchester and stuff. Got about 18 people off the streets of Salford and Manchester in any which way we could get them back, and trams, taxis and buses, and people giving them lifts. We got them all back to the place. We had a running shelter within about 48 hours or something. We had beds, mattresses, couches, fridge freezers, cookers, and food within the fridges and freezers. Because I put shout outs on Facebook saying, look, we're in this building, can anybody help us? And people was bringing things from right, left and centre to help us. There's a lot of support. We got what do you call it? Achieve Drug and Alcohol involved, in case anybody within the building was in need of help from them. So we've got Salford Unemployment and Community Resource Centre helping as well, getting them on English courses. They was using their breakfast club. They was using the washing facilities too. So there was a lot of things within the area that I knew about, what I could use to my advantage to help other people. If I couldn't do it, if I couldn't help them, I knew where to direct these people. I mean, I was doing stuff off my own back as well. I was bin dipping to get food and stuff, because the amount of waste what goes out the back of these supermarkets is unbelievable. So I got loads of food and stuff, and I even got brand new clothes out of some of the skips as well. Even these charity shops what are open, I mean that half the stuff that you donate them ends up in the skip, believe it or not. So I've got stuff out there as well. And then what do you call it? the NHS realised that we was within one of their buildings. They said obviously they wanted us out of there, so I wrote to everybody that had a piece of the pie, basically. Everyone that was involved in owning the building, or anyone I thought that may have some sort of vested interest in the building. Say, look, we're in one of your buildings. We've got the, what do you call it? We've got people, some of them back into employment. We have some of them doing CSCS guard courses with the Booth Centre in Broughton Trust. We had some of them doing like courses at the, what do you call it, the Salford Unemployment Community Resource Centre, like I've already said. Some of them got back in employment working. The ones that couldn't work because they wasn't in the right frame of mind or wasn't ready for work, they can now claim benefits. So I said, you know, this building's now been empty for about 15 years. You're paying rates on this building. You've obviously been paying the bills for the gas and the electric because it's been on all the time. I've been aware of it. I mean, so, you know, I took hold of this building because I was stood outside this building when I was homeless myself with snow on my head, freezing me absolute bollocks off, looking at a building what's empty and nice and warm while I'm sat outside, you know. Said, these people are willing to pay, you get £100 a week off these people, and you're getting £1,800 a week for a building that you've left to rot. You know, it makes sense to make some money out of it, you know, if that's what you want. They said no anyway. And instead of letting us do that, I mean, we're unpaid security guards in this place. We was looking after the place. I mean, we're not going to nick the copper, we're not going to nick the electrics because we need that stuff, don't we? We need the heating, we need the lights. We're living there, it's our home. But instead of like letting us stay there, you know, until they had some sort of use of the building, instead of doing that, they took us to court. They employed like loads of barristers, solicitors, High Court judges, you know, all these people to get us out of this building. How much money they spent on that, I've no idea, because no judge gets out of bed for pennies, does he? And especially a High Court judge, he's not going to get out for peanuts, is he, either? So we got Manchester law firm involved on a pro bono basis to try and help us on like humanitarian grounds and stuff, you know. We won a few of the cases, so we got well over Christmas out of it, luckily. Then after that, we lost the case, so the bailiffs come, but they're not allowed to kick us out. They need the High Court bailiffs as well, the county sheriff bailiffs. They come up along to make sure the other ones are doing their job. Then we had vulnerable adults in there. We had somebody under the age of 18. She was about 17 at the time. So they've got to get social workers involved because we've got vulnerable adults there. So, you know, they need them involved as well. They've got to get the dog unit there as well because we always have a dog. Well, every building we've been in, we've always had a dog for protection. And, you know, we like dogs as well, you know. But then they've got to get the RSPCA to make sure that they're doing their job as well. So obviously that nothing untoward is going on. Then they've got to get a locksmith involved because we're not going to let them in willingly, are we? Because this is our home at the moment. You know, there's probably got to be an ambulance on standby, a fire brigade on standby, because nobody knows what's going to happen in these situations. I mean, everybody's very high rate and tense, and it could kick off at any minute, couldn't it? We're going to be on the streets again. It's still in the middle of winter out, you know, it's cold. Then they've got to get the police involved as well to make sure that the peace is kept and there is no kicking off in the first place. Now, all this money going to waste, you know, they could have invested it into the building to help people. They're supposed to be the NHS, aren't they? I mean, aren't they supposed to be there to help people? I mean, and it costs him more money to leave that person on the street in the cold. I don't get it really. I mean, it's going to cost them loads more because they've been in and out of hospital or possibly dead. You know, it's going to cost money for, you know, the funeral and all the rest of it. It's just throwing money out, nothing, aren't they? When they could have been making money out of that building. I don't understand it. And then after that, they then kicked us all out and employed 2 security guards to watch this empty building with 2 dogs with them to watch an empty building what was nice and warm, sat in nice warm vans in the middle of winter, looking at us, sat outside the building, what's empty, looking at this nice warm empty building while we're freezing our tits off outside. I don't fucking get it. It's completely fucking beyond me. I don't understand it. I mean, if I owned a building and I wasn't doing anything with it and there was people in it, good luck to them, you know. They're not even getting any sort of, they're not getting done for the bills. I mean, every time I've ever took a building over, I put the buildings all in my name. So I don't give a toss about the debt what I'm in. I've always been in debt all my life anyway, and I'll always be in debt. I don't give a damn. I'll die with it. You know, it's only money. It's people what I care about. I don't give a toss about money. Sorry about the language, but it's just the way I am. So when we got kicked out of there, we ended up in the vet surgery, not so far away from where we was in the mansion and the boathouse on the same street. We got in there and made that into a nice home too. I even had phone calls when I was in there. I had a phone call off GMP. He said, "Is that Saving People Shelter Project?" I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "We've got a young vulnerable lady. She just got out of Meadowbrook. She's got nowhere to go." So I said, "Okay." He said, "Have you got any room at any of your shelters?" I said, "I have, yes." He said, "But you do realise it's a squat, don't you?" He said, "Yes, Pottsy, we know who you are. We've arrested you millions of times in the past." He said, "But at this present time, we've rang all the numbers and there's nobody answering apart from you. But we don't think you're doing anything wrong with what you're doing." He said, some of the officers probably do, but we don't. We think, you know, you're doing what you can. The building's been empty for ages and you're helping people." He said, you're not rifling the place. You're doing it for a good cause." So I said, "Well, I'm not going to turn anybody away. Bring her to me." So she came, and they dropped her off at the shelter. And luckily, that girl now has somewhere to stay. Now she's got sorted her life out. She's got her own flat somewhere, and her mental health is quite stable. I've spoke to her recently, so I was happy about that. We wrote to the people who owned the vets and they said, "Look, we're in one of your properties and all that." Then they said they was aware of that. But they said they don't want any more contact with me. Speak to their legal team. We ended up getting kicked out of there as well. So we had somewhere else lined up from there. But whilst I was in there, Grandad had gone to another squat what somebody else had opened up. What came from the doctor's surgery what we'd had. And he'd gone to there, and then I'd got a lift off 2 lads what came to the vets, and he said, "Pottsy, have you got any room at this place?" I said, "No, but one of my friends has just opened somewhere up in Swinton, so can you come, we'll go and have a look at that place." So I've gone down there. Grandad sat there watching TV. He looked very shivelled and not very well at the time. I mean, when he's normally with us, he was always nice, clean, and he looked okay. You know what I mean? He looked quite dapper. But he looked very, very ill when he was there. Everybody kept coming in saying, "Grandad, give us your card, we'll go to the shop for you." I think it was having him off right, left and centre. I wasn't happy with that. So these 2 lads what I'd brought back to the old people's home said, "Oh, we've got a nice kitchen here, we'll go and get some shopping." They had a van at the time. So we went out, got some shopping, come back, and it was rifling all the kitchen. It was just taking all the kitchen out and ripping it out. I think they were scrapping it or something. I thought, this is no good. This isn't how it should be run, sort of thing. 'Cause I wasn't involved with that one. So I thought, well, I said to Grandad, I said, I'll make some room at the vets and I'll take you down there. I said, so hang fire a bit basically. So I've gone back, sorted the room out downstairs in the cellar for him and made it livable. And then I've gone to Eccles and I've seen Grandad then sat near the church. Near the church cross, Eccles Cross, and I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I can't stay there." He said, "They've took all the tellies out the room. I don't know what they've done with them." He said, "They only left one in the front room for me." I said, "And then I've gone back to my bedroom. My bed's been stolen. That's gone. I don't know where that's gone." Then I looked out the doorway and somebody's taking the wardrobe past me. So he said, "I couldn't stay there. They're just wrecking the place, Pottsy." So I said, "Okay, get a taxi. We'll go down to vets." Now from there, like I say, we got kicked out of there eventually, and we ended up in the chemist on New Lane in Eccles. Now that didn't last very long, and the bailiffs ended up kicking us out of there. The bailiffs was quite impressed with what they'd walked into. They said they'd seen worse houses than the squat what we were in. They was quite amazed. I mean, we had a TV in there, we had internet in there as well. But I always had somewhere lined up for afterwards, you know. I had the Unicorn pub after that. So everybody helped us. I had friends who owned taxi firms and removal services, and they helped us move from one place to another. If I just put a shout out on Facebook and people would help. And then we got it all moved to the Unicorn. So I was there for a good few months, and then A few of the media and bits of press got involved with it as soon as they'd found out that we were in their building. And then we took that to court, and we'd lost that anyway. And then the bailiffs came round one day, and this big bully of a bailiff started arguing with one of the residents what was in there. He'd give us 20 minutes basically to clear everything that ever belonged to us, what our possessions, what we had. So I said, well, you'll have to give us a bit more time. The other guy said it was going to be a bit longer, but he was just being an arrogant, horrible, nasty piece of work. Started shouting at one of the residents, like I say, and next minute a fight broke out because I think he was Polish, because I could hear them going, Kurwa, Kurwa, and then they was fighting with each other, and they started jumping over my friend, what was one of the residents there, started jumping all over his head, and then jumping all over him while I was on the floor, and I thought this, and I started filming it on Facebook, so it was on Facebook Live, for our protection, you know, so they couldn't like accuse of us doing anything. I was doing it for our own protection. Next minute, I think somebody on Facebook had seen the amount of violence this man was throwing out, and he rang. They must have rang the police. Then the police came to obviously oversee that the peace was being kept. They came. The one that got put on the floor ended up getting the better of this big what do you call it? This big bailiff guy. Anyway, but when the police came, they said to the big bailiff guy, he said, right, you get in your van. He said, you'll never work in security again. He said, I'll make sure your badge is took off you. I've seen the video, what's gone on. He said, and I said, he's not a very nice person. So, and that was off a police officer. I was quite surprised of that. He ended up going in his van sulking, this security guard. So we'd all packed up our stuff. It was what we could muster together. People was helping us move it from different places to different places. And then, what do you call it? We got out of there. And then we didn't really know what to do. We was outside all loitering about. The press was all about us while we was there. We didn't really know where to go. I did have somewhere lined up, but I didn't want to show them that, because then we'd be kicked out of that place within a short space of time, wouldn't we? 20 minutes after this, I had a phone call off GMP saying, is that Saving People Shelter Project? I said, yes it is. So we've got about 20 people on the streets, just been kicked out of the Unicorn. Is there any chance you can help us put them up anywhere? So I said, are you mad? I said, you're the one who's just helped enforce these bailiffs to get us kicked out of this place. I said, it's absolutely ludicrous what you're asking me for help now. He said, oh, is that Pottsy? I said, yeah. I said, well, have you got any other buildings lined up or anything? So I have, but I'm not willing to tell you where these buildings are. I said, because then we'll be out quicker than you can say boo, you know what I mean? So I said, take them to my friends on Brookhouse. I've got a friend who's got a 3-bedroomed house, and some of them got put up there, some of them got put up at my other friend's flat. I had a flat at the time as well. I was only doing this to help other people at the time. I'd sorted myself out a flat. So I ended up putting some in my flat as well. Then a couple of days later, I'd gone to the Albert Edwards in Eccles. I'd realised that somebody had tried breaking into it 2 weeks prior, I'd found out. So me and my other friend walked down there with ladders each and a bucket of soapy water and some chamois leather basically, and Ivy's jacket. We tried to look for the window that he tried getting through. We tried at the front, we couldn't find anything. We went round the back, jumped over the ridge of the roof. My mate climbed up and opened the window. The alarm started kicking in. Woo, woo, woo. So he said, "Oh, sod this." He said, "The police are going to be here at any moment." So he tried climbing back over the roof. And he said, "I think they're there. I think they've seen me." So I said, "Don't worry about that." I said, "I'll have a chat with them." So I walked over with my ladders and went, "Hello." He said, "Oh, not you again, Pottsy." He said, "Don't tell me the window just fell open and the door just fell off." He said, "Oh, you had the keys miraculously." So I said, No. I said, "You do remember?" I said, "A couple of weeks ago somebody tried breaking into here." He said, "I'm very well aware of that, Pottsy." I said, "Well, you got arrested, didn't he, for trying to break in and stuff?" He said, "Yes, I know that." I said, "Well, obviously the window was already open then, wasn't it?" I said, "All we've done is just reopen it." I said, we've not made forced entry, we've not broken in." So he said, "Well, you can't have this building." I said, "Well, we're already in there, mate. There's people in there." I said, "And the 144 stickers are already on the boards and the windows outside." And he said, "Okay, well," he said to his colleague, he said, "There's nothing we could do here." He said, "He knows his legal rights." So he said, "Well, we'll just have to leave him to it, you know, until they get the court order." So It was all in there. Grandad was in there. A few other of my friends was in there. And then a chap called Rod asked me whether I wanted to let some fireworks off. He knocked on the door. He'd been there previously and asked me for a picture out the back snug with somebody called Jim the Breadman on it. He passed away and they'd left it like a memorial thing in the back snug. And I'd give it him a couple of weeks earlier. He just wanted it as peace of mind in case it got broke or anything there. But I said everything within this building will stay in the building, which it did. We even did repairs within the building. We always did the buildings up when we were in there. We never wrecked the places. He came on Remembrance Sunday in 2019. He knocked on the door. His medals had come off as well. I don't think they were his. I think they were his dad's medals, but he couldn't get them back on. So we managed to get them on temporary, so we could go and observe the 2-minute silence later on. He then asked me. He pulled out 2 air bomb repeaters and he said, "Can you place them in the pumpkin at exactly 1 minute to 11?" He said, "Do it at that time." He said, "And then we can then observe the 2-minute silence." He said, like a mark of respect, like a gun salute. So I thought, well, it seemed viable to me. I didn't think nothing of it really at the time. I wasn't thinking about people with PTSD and all the rest of it, like everybody said afterwards. It didn't cross my mind. It should have done really, because my granddad suffered from shell shock for many years. But at the time, it just didn't seem like I was doing it for any other purpose than to help this guy and as a mark of respect. So at exactly 1 minute to 11, I set the fireworks off. I timed it on my phone. Set them off. They went in the direction of the old indoor market. Next minute, the whole crowd come running over. The police was there. They were all like throwing cones and stuff, telling them they were all going to do me in and all the rest of it. Get down here while we levy you, basically. And I thought, well, this hasn't gone to plan. This hasn't. I've made a right fuck up here. I thought, So somebody threw a cone and tried to throw it at me, but that hit the police officer and they tried getting through the door. All this was going on while we had Grandad there. He was an ex-pensioner, an ex-veteran within the same building. What everybody out there has probably forgot about and walked past many a times whilst he's been on the street. He's been and served our country and has been left there to rot on our street, which is absolutely ridiculous. You've served your time and you've helped us and you've done all this sort of stuff for us. And there you go, you can have fuck all, basically. The country just fucking... I have no words for it. I then got 3 months in prison for this. They couldn't send me to prison for the firework because it wasn't an actual offence to let a firework off in a public place. The media made it out as if I'd been stood there with some sort of rocket launcher over them, you know what I mean? That wasn't the case. They made it out like it was some sort of real loon or something, I don't know. But there you go. Ended up in Forest Bank then. The second day I got in there, I'd come out of my cell. 2 lads jumped me from nowhere from both sides and started jumping all over me. I then got locked up then in my cell on DNU, which is called stands for Do Not Unlock. And then I had a friend there, was from Eccles, within my cell at the time. And he was he's pretty handy anyway, he could handle himself. And he was on server, he was on kitchens as well. And I said to Screws, he said, look, let him out of the cell. He said, I'm not even having my door locked all the time. He's happy with coming out and that. So I said, no, because everybody's like really gunning for him at the minute because of what's in the papers and on the news. So they came to my door and said, look, we don't want to let you out. So I said, well, I want to come out. I said, I'm not scared, If they want to do that, they can do that. He said, no, we're going to stick you on the other wing, which is basically for vulnerable prisoners, which is a lot of paedophiles on there. And there's no chance on God's green earth I was going on there. I said, I'd rather get over the head every day with pool balls than go on that wing. I said, because once you've been on there, your name's going to be muddy inside and out of the prison. So anyway, they took me off DNU and everything was okay after that. Apart from, like, my family was getting a load of abuse, they was threatening my kids. I mean, who does that, My kids was like 7, 8, 9 or something, I don't know. All my different kids was at different ages and stuff, And they were getting threatened, my mum was getting threatened. Like, well, where's his mum live? We'll go and like, terrorise her, This is the society we live in for some horrible reason, and I'm the bad one. So what do you call it? I got out of jail 3 months later. Well, I got out once before, and they'd put some conditions on me saying not to enter anywhere within the city of Salford. Don't go anywhere near my girlfriend. I don't know what that was to do, because I'd not done anything wrong with my girlfriend, you know. But she'd passed me the lighter to do it, you know. We both didn't think of anything being wrong with it at the time. So I said I'm not going to stick to any of these conditions. They wanted to put me in the police came and picked me up from Forest Bank and tried to put me in some bail hostel. They said there's no way I'm going in a bail hostel either, because it's full of wrong guns in there. I don't want to be associated with any wrong guns. You don't know who you're talking to, you know. So I didn't want to go in there. I said I'll be going soon as you drop me off. They said, oh, it's up to you. That but a warrant will be put out for your arrest. On the day I got out, it was my mum's 60th birthday, so there was no way I was staying out of Salford. But I'm not missing my mum's 60th birthday for anybody. So I'd gone to my mum's party, went on the run for a couple of weeks, and then handed myself back in at Swinton Nick. Then I got out in March 2020. So I did the full time then. So I got out and there was no conditions. I couldn't do nothing about it then. So I got out on my latest possible date of release. I was homeless again then. Luckily, some of the people that I'd helped over the time, I'd now got places. I mean, people that was in the Albert Edwards and the Unicorn, I'd sent them to the local authorities, their local authorities on several occasions. Nobody helped them. But as soon as the shit hit the fan at the Albert Edwards, they all come in like a nice team and said, oh yeah, we'll rehouse you, we'll put you up here, there and everywhere. So I thought, well, if you can do that now to make me look like a twat, you could have done that months ago, you know. You could have done that with every person that ever had come through my door. But you didn't, did you? But you have now. I was happy about that. That was one of the main reasons. I was more worried when I went to prison. I wasn't asked about I was in prison. I had a roof over my head then. I had 3 meals a day and a shower. You know, I was quite pleased with where I was. You know, some people don't get that. You know, freeze on the streets in the middle of winter, can't you? So I was more worried about what happened to the rest of the people within the building. But luckily they'd all been rehoused. Grandad had got somewhere. A year. I think he had the place for a year, Grandad as well. Unfortunately, he passed away. Well, they put me in the Ashton Arms in Middleton. I'd gone to the housing to Middleton, to Salford Housing, sorry. So a place I'd previously gone whilst I was living in a bush shelter with my girlfriend at the time. When we'd gone to the shelter previously, this lady behind the counter, it was about 5 to 5. So it was getting on a bit when we got there, and she kept looking at a clock watching all the time as well. So she was wanting to go home once it was near time to go home. So I said, look, we've got nowhere to stay. We're staying in a bush shelter and stuff. She had eczema at the time, so she's scratching her legs and stuff. So it's possible that she's going to end up getting infected. We're living in a lot of squalor, piss and shit, aren't we? In the bush shelters, people piss in there. You know what I mean? I don't personally, because that's exactly where I'm staying and living, isn't it? If I'm going for a pee, I've got to go down the entry or something out the way. So they said we didn't meet the criteria anyway. So I said, what's it take to meet the criteria? Does it take for me to go over the road and have this pee down the entry? Or to get stabbed and raped or beat up, you know, would be priority then. And just this arrogant, horrible woman behind the counter just said to me, she said, personally, Mr. Potts, I couldn't care less if he was in a police cell tonight. Which I thought, wow, I mean, it got me back up a lot. It made me really angry. And it also made my girlfriend really angry at the time. She went to jump over the counter and I just dragged her back. I said, look, it's not worth it, you know. I said, if you're talking to me like this, you're talking to everybody that comes through your door like this. I said, you shouldn't be in this job, you know. You're looking at your watch every 5 minutes, every couple of minutes, sorry. It's like 5 to 5 or whatever it was. It was nearly, the shutters were going down at the front. I said, at least you've got somewhere. You're going home, aren't you? To a nice warm bed. I said, we're going to freeze our ass off out there. Possibly die, get beat up or anything. I don't know. I've been pissed on and all sorts. Absolute disgusting. Some of the people in society are absolute monsters. So I've lost myself. Where was I? Like I said, when I got out, I'd stayed at Grandad's a few times, and I had a lot of people what had got sorted out. Sorry, I've gone back and forth a bit here, but I got sort of sorted out of different people. like Grandad and Paul had had somewhere as well, one of my friends. But I thought, well, I need somewhere myself, so I ended up going back to this what do you call it, the housing people in Salford. I said, look, I've got nowhere to go again. I've lost my flat whilst I've been in custody. They took it off me. It's supposed to be supported living. There's no support really, I don't think, because they took it off me, even though the rent was being paid whilst I was in there. So luckily this time, this arrogant woman, she wasn't that arrogant with me this time. She said, she gave me some piece of paper and said, look, head to this place. I didn't have any money. I had to beg, borrow and steal to get there. It was in Middleton. It's called the Ashton Arms. Now I've walked in there, it looks okay at the minute. When you get in the reception, everything looks okay. When you go upstairs, all hell breaks loose, you know. It's like a war zone of drugs up there. There's more drugs in there, in that place, probably there is in Cartagena or Colombia, you know what I mean? Now, if I weren't as strong as I was at the time, I mean, because I didn't want to touch any of them drugs again because of the amount of shit it drove me to. You know, I'd rob off people that I wouldn't normally rob off anybody, but that drug was just, it was my poison. It wasn't a very nice thing to have. It made me into a horrible person. So they put me in this place and it's rife with drugs. I've gone in there, I've gone into my room. There's not much of a lock on the room. You can just like push it open, you know what I mean? I had no light bulb in there. The place was a shithole. And then this girl's got a door open, there's smoke bellowing out. She said, have you got a Rizzler over there? I said, yes, I have. So I've gone over there, give her a Rizzler. She sat on the end of the bed smoking a crack pipe like it's the norm thing to do in there. I thought, here we go, this is fucking absolutely ridiculous where they put me here. They put me in the lion's den here. Then this other chap comes over and said, oh, it's Pottsy, isn't it? He said, oh, you do all the squats and the shelters, don't you? Try to give me a hug. He's got a hypodermic needle in his hand. I went, whoa, you know, fuck, coronavirus was going on at the time. I said, what's an ask about that shit? I said, that needle, mate. He went, oh, sorry, mate. He said, I didn't realise I had it in my hand. I mean, I've no offence against anybody that's using the drugs, you know. Like I said, I've used many different drugs over the years. But I didn't want to be in that environment at the time, you know what I mean? I thought, you know, if I was that weak, I could have gone back to them drugs. I could have gone, fucking hell, you know, I'm in this shithole again. I might as well use, but I was strong enough not to. Unfortunately, one of my friends, Matthew, he came to the same place where I was, and he'd only been off the stuff probably about 6 months, and he went full circle. He's only a young lad, he's younger than me. He went full circle and back on it again. Unfortunately, he's now passed away, as his granddad as well. You know, I've lost so many people doing all this shit. Some fucking believable. I just want the fucking thing to be fixed, and I don't know what else to say. It's fucking society's fucked, and the system needs fucking absolute fixing. It's no good fixing things with plasters when they need to be in intensive care, mate. You know, you need the shit fucking really sorting. It's not fair. I'm